Chodesh Tov and Boker Tov. Today's Daf Yomi is Sanhedrin Mem Dalet, Sanhedrin 44, and today's Daf Yomi is dedicated for Shemir for the Chayalim. That's all for the Shuyim, Yeshua for Am Yisrael. We say that just like the Rosh Chodesh is, we say Mechadesh Chadash, and we say blessed is the one who renews the month, so too we'll have a renewal in our lives. So we're going to start on Mem Dalet Amud Aleph of 44a on the second line. And the Gemara begins the Daf Yomi with one of the most powerful phrases in the entire Talmud. And we're discussing the punishment of Achan and the sin of Achan. Achan, in the time of Joshua, he took from the spoils of the battle, and he wasn't allowed to do that. And so, as a consequence, Bnei Israel lost their next war. They lost their next battle with Ai. And so then Achan was punished. So the Gemara begins today's discussion of Achan by noting that the pasuk says Chata Yisrael, and Hashem says to Joshua after the battle with Jericho that the Jewish people have sinned because they weren't allowed to take spoils from it. It says Chata Yisrael. So Amar Rabbi Abba bar Zabda, Aval Pisha Chata Yisrael. A Jew, even though he sins, is still a Jew. It means that once you're a Jew, you can never leave. And so Achan, the point is that even though a Jew has sinned, he's still a Jew. And so therefore, he might have done a terrible thing. He did do a terrible thing, but he still remained a Jew. And so therefore, this is a very powerful idea of how we look at repentance and we look at people's relationship with the Jewish faith. Once you're a Jew, even though you've sinned, you're still a Jew, and you always have a path back. Amar Rabbi Abba bar Zabda, Alpha Pisha Chata Yisrael. Amar Rabbi Abba, Hainu Damri Inchi. This is why people say, Asa Dekai Bene Chalfi, a myrtle, which is basically amongst the other plants. Maybe it's amongst the willows or amongst the weeds, basically. And so myrtle, even though it's amongst the willows, it's still going to be considered a myrtle. So too, Asa Dekai Bene Chalfi Asa Yishmei. The myrtle, even though it's amongst the willows, is still called a myrtle, and therefore that's what it's called. V'gam avru es brisi. It says in the pasuk that Hashem says to Joshua, Jewish people sinned, and they violated my covenant. Asher tzivisi osam, that I commanded them. V'gam lachu min acherem. They took from the booty. V'gam ganvu. They also stole. Gam chachashu. They denied. Gam samu b'koyhem, and also they placed it into their baggage. So Amar Rabbi Ulai, so Rabbi Ulai taught Mishum Rabbi Yehuda bar Misparta Melamed She'avar Achan al Chamishe Chumshei Torah. Achan violated the whole 5 books of the Torah, as it states. Shenemer Chamisha Gam, as it says 5 times the word Gam in this pasuk. Amar Rabbi Ulai Mishum Rabbi Yehuda bar Misparta Achan Moshech bar Sohaya. Achan was Moshech Ba'arla, which means he pulled the skin of his member and he kept pulling it until it covered up his member so that he would not look like he was circumcised. So he was Moshech Ba'arla. So that is a terrible sin. Because it says here they violated my covenant. And it says that a person who does not circumcise will get the punishment of kares because he's rejected my covenant. So the Gemara says, well, Pshita, it's obvious that he did that sin because it says specifically that he violated the whole Torah. So this is obvious. Why do you have to repeat it? So the Gemara explains, no, Ma'u Detema, the mitzvah gufe lo pakar, that he did not violate the mitzvahs itself on his body. And Moshe Bar also is affecting his own body. He might have thought, okay, he violated the Torah, but he didn't hurt his body. But no, we see from here, mitzvahs on his body, he's still rejected. It says in the pasuk that they took the booty, and a terrible thing, a nevoah was done in Israel. In addition to doing the whole Torah, he also had adulterous relations with a maiden who was betrothed. It says here the word nevoah. And it says by the sin of Nara Marasa, ki nevoah b'Yisrael. So Pshita, it's obviously the case that he did it. He violated all 5 books of the Torah. No, Ma'odetema Kuli Hilo Pakar Nafshe. No, he wouldn't have done such an egregious sin to violate against God and also to violate against humanity, to embarrass her family and to prohibit it to her husband. So that's what it says here, this explicitly about that violation of the Nar Marasa. Ravina Amar, Dine Kinara Marasa Dibiskila. So that Achan was punished just like a Nara Marasa gets the punishment of stoning, so too Achan got that punishment. Amay Reish Galutz Ravuna, how could that be? Ksiva Yikach Yoshuas Achan ben Zerach, as a Kesef, as a Deris, Veshalo, Shonazav, as Panav, as Pnosav, as Sharov, as Chamarov, as Sonov, as Alov, as Kol Asherlo. It says, when it refers to Achan's sin, it says that they took Achan, Yoshua took Achan and the money and the mantles and the crimson garments and his children and his sons and his daughters and his oxen and his donkeys and his sheep and everything that was him. And he brought them up to the Emek Achor. And so they're all going to be punished. So if that's the case, the Reish Galusa says to Rav Huna, what was the sin of his sons and his daughters? Why were they punished like this? So Amroel Tamech, Kol Yisrael. He said, well, according to your logic, what was the sin of all of Israel? It says, V'kol Yisrael. It says when he went up, it says, V'kol Yisrael imo, that all of the Jewish people were with him. So if that's the case, what was the sin of all of Israel at that point? So obviously it's the case, El Erdosan, Hachanam Kedel Erdosan. He took them up in order to basically to intimidate them, to threaten them that they'll see Achan in his bad state, and they themselves would be careful and not to violate the spoils of the war anymore. It says, it says that after Joshua brought them up, it says he burned them in fire and then he stoned them with the stones. So if that's the case, why would he do both to them? So Amaravina, Haroy was Sreifa, Haroy was Skila. So he says those things that were supposed to be burned, like the money, the silver, and the gold, they were burnt. And those things that were appropriate to be stoned, like Achan, his ox, and his animals, they were stoned. And this was a punishment in order to scare others. That's what Rashi says. Because typically speaking, you wouldn't have had to burn them, those objects. And it says in the pasuk that Achan said, I saw the booty, the Aderet Shinar, the beautiful garment of Babylon. So what is that referring to? Achaz Tova, Shinar Achaz Tova, Umasayim Shkolim Kesef. That's what I saw. I saw one Aderet Shinar that was very good, and then I saw Masayim Shkolim Kesef. So Rav Amar Itztua de Milso, Shmuel Amar Sarboa de Tzrifa. Rav says it was a garment made out of beautiful wool, like baby wool. That basically they turned into a special garment so that the wool wouldn't get ruined. And Sarboa de Tzafra is it was basically dyed with a special aluminum to make it better. So these are special garments at that point. So hold on one second. Dyed with like an alum. So this is and this is the special garment that they made. It says in the next pasuk, what does that mean? What does that mean? That he spread them out before Hashem. What does it mean? So it says the Gemara, he took them and he spread them out before God. That Joshua took the garments that Achan had taken, the spoils, and he spread them out before God, and he said, Master of the universe, because of this, you're going to kill the majority of the Sanhedrin. These people, you're killing the majority of the Sanhedrin. For this, that the people of Ai in the next battle, they killed around 36 men. Mamish, Rabbi Yehuda says, no, it was 36, not around 36. And It wasn't 36, it was like 36. It was that Yair ben Menashe sheshakol connected Rubashal Sanhedrin. So this was Yair ben Menashe, was equivalent to the majority of the Sanhedrin, and he was killed for this, for just a garment. That seems like a harsh punishment. Amar Nachman of Rav, Ma'idal Sev Tachnunim Yidaber Rosh VaAshir Yaneh Azus. What does it mean that the poor man speaks humbly and the wealthy man speaks with arrogance? Tachnunim Yidaber Rosh. That's Moshe. VaAshir Yaneh Azus. And the wealthy man will respond with arrogance. Zeh Yoshua. That's Joshua. My time. What's the reasoning? What's the logic for this? Rashi tells us that Moshe, when he needed to ask for mercy for the Jewish people, would speak with a lashon raka, with a soft language. So what does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? Tachnunim midaber Rosh, that Moshe. V'asher Yaneh Azus, that Yoshua. My time. If you want to say, it says because they spread them out before Hashem. That Joshua spread it out before God and was lashing out at him. Pinchas did the same exact thing. Pinchas stood up, and after the sin with the daughters of Moab, when they sinned with the Midianite women, then that it says that the Pinchas stood up and he stopped the plague. And the Martin say he prayed. He made a judgment with his creator. He said, that Pinchas came and he said, and he threw them down before God. What did he throw down before God? That he came and he put down the bodies of Zimri before Hashem, Zimri and Cosby, and he threw them down before God, and he said, for the fact that these two people were sinning, you're going to kill 24,000 people from Israel. The Chsiv, and it says, and it was 24,000 who died in the plague. So Joshua was not the only one who threw something down before God in an act of impudence. Also, Pinchas did it. So the Gemara says, okay, for Ela Mehacha. So this is the source for this pasuk. Lama Avarta. So it says that Joshua said to God, "Why did you bring these people? Lama Avarta Haviras Amazes Yarden. Why do you bring these people across the Jordan?" Moshe also said something similar. Lama Harayosa Amazes. Moshe said that to God as well. El Mehacha. So it's a different pasuk. Joshua said. He said, and we'd be better off staying the other side of the Jordan, where Yomer Hashem Yoshua Kumwach. So God says to Joshua, Kumwach, get up, meaning to say, Darash Abishila, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shalcha Kasha Mishalham. So God was saying to Joshua that yours will be more difficult from them, meaning to say that it's not only they who are being punished, but you are also the one being punished. I say when you cross the Jordan, you have to set up 60. You have to set up the Torah on stones. That's what I said to you. And what do? You wait till you get to Har Grizim and Har Evel, and there you set up the stones that I asked you to set up. Basar Denafik Ukim Rav Amora. So after Rav Shua left, Rav established an Amora next to him, meaning somebody to get up and to darshan. V'darash kasher tziva Hashem es Moshe. Kasher tziva Hashem es Moshe avdo. Avdo kain tziva Moshe es Yoshua v'chein asa Yoshua lo isir davar mikol asher tziva Hashem es Moshe. It says in the pasuk that just like God commanded Moshe's servant, so too Moshe commanded Joshua, and Joshua did. He didn't depart from anything. And came out Tamalomar Kumwach. So why is God rebuking Joshua by saying you should get up? You cause this to them. That's what God says to Joshua. That's what it says in I. That it says you shall do to Ai and its kingdom, just like you did to Yericho and its kingdom. It says Vayibiyos Yoshua Bericho Vayisa Vayar. Joshua lifts up his eyes and he sees, behold, there's a man standing next to him with a sword in his hand. And Joshua goes out to greet him and he says, are you with us or with our enemy? Vayomer, lo, ki ani sar tzva Hashem, atavati. And he says, I am angel of God, and now I have come. And he said, Joshua fell on his face and he bowed down. Now, for the fact that the angel of God says, now I've come, this teaches us, that that he had sinned before, but he's only being come now and being brought to task for it. First of all, why is Joshua greeting this man who he sees at night? You're not allowed to greet a friend at night, a person you don't know. We're concerned that this person is a demon, and you're not allowed to say Shalom Aleichem to a demon. And the word Shalom, Rashi says, is the name of God, because it says Vayikro Hashem Shalom. So you can't say Shalom to a demon. And first of all, you shouldn't bow down to him because it looks like you're bowing down to an idol. So Gemara says, no, that case was different. Shani Yasam the Kamarway Anisar Tzva Hashem Atabati. So he says, because I'm an angel of God, and now I've come. Maybe he's just lying. No, we know that the angels of God don't say God's name in vain. So Amarway, this is what the angel said to him. Emesh bitaltem. The reason why I come now is because yesterday you didn't bring the carbon tamid, because in the morning you went to fight and you didn't bring the tamid shal bein arbaim. You didn't bring the tamid in the afternoon. So, and also v'achshav bitaltem talmud Torah, and also now you have not studied Torah. Since in the morning you weren't able to engage in Torah because you were in the battle, you need to engage in Torah at night, and you should have slept there and studied Torah. So you should have studied Torah. Because you didn't study Torah, now I've come to take punishment from you. Joshua says, so which one did you come for the sin of not bringing the carbon tamid in the afternoon, or for the sin of not studying Torah, of bittul Torah? So it says, Atabasi. No, I've come for now, meaning for the sin of not, because you didn't study Torah. Yeah, that's what it says, that Joshua spent that whole night in the valley of studying the Torah. So basically he says, Atabati, that you weren't studying Torah, and I've come now for this sin. So the Gemara says, that whole night Joshua studied the Torah all night. And Amar Shmuel Bar Unya Mishmei Derav Gadol Talmud Torah Yotzer Me'akrav. To me, that we see from here that Torah study is even greater than the bringing of the sacrifices. It says Atavati, come for the sin of you not studying Torah, not for the sin of bringing the carbon, of not bringing the carbon tamid. Amar Abayu Avdimi Ha'ikra B'Marav of Mayok Misulei. So Rav Dimi, so Shmuel Bar Unya, so Abayu said to Rav Dimi, this pasuk that we've been referring to, this pasuk that I'm going to tell you about, how do they establish this pasuk? It says, Al say Riv, don't go out to an argument quickly, Maher. Pen matase b'achrusa. What will you do in the end? When your friend puts you to shame. Rivcha, Riv esreacha, v'sodacher al tagel. And it says, argue with your friend, but don't reveal the secrets. This is a pasuk from Mishlei. So what do we do with this? So in Eretz Yisrael, so Rav Dimi said, when God said to Yechezkel, go say to Jewish people, your father was an Amori and your mother was a Hittite. Meaning to say, Avram was an Amori, and your mother was a Hittite. So what does that mean? So he said, Amra ruach paskonios lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So he said, a ruach paskonios. This is the ruach paskonios. This is the Rashi says this refers to the angel Gabriel said before God, if Abraham and Sarah will come and stand before you, Would you say this to them and embarrass them? Fight your fight, but don't get anybody else involved by revealing the secrets of the other. So Umar says, did the angel Gabriel really have this permission to speak with God like this? And the angel Gabriel has three names: Pisgon, Itmo, and Sigron. Pisgon, Shaposik Dvarim Klapim Mala. His name is Pisgon, he speaks curtly towards the one above. Itmo and Sha'otim Avonosei and Israel, he stops the sins of Israel. Sigron, once he closes an argument, on behalf of Bnei Israel, nobody else can reopen it. Now the Gemara goes back to the battle of Ai. Did you arrange your prayer? Did you not arrange your prayer when you were in trouble? Meaning to say that Eov's friends asked him, did he pray properly before his trouble? So then he wouldn't have been punished. A person should always pray before he's in trouble. Because if Avram had not offered prayers in advance of when he was between Beis El and Beis Ai, he prayed there, then nobody would have remained. Meaning to say, from the fact that he prayed there, that caused the Jewish people to have a remnant. Anyone who strengthens himself with prayer in the world below, he won't have enemies above him in the world above. Rabbi Yochanan says a different explanation of this pasuk. Person should always ask mercy from Hashem, so that the angels should strengthen his prayer and that he will have no enemies above. So how do we know that when Achan did tshuva, it says in the Mishnah that he was atoned for? So Tana Rabbanan, it says, Minayin Shakipra will be duya. From where do we know that Achan's confession served as an atonement? As it states, Yoshua, Machar Tana Yacharcha Hashem Bayom Hazeh. He said, why have you ruined us? Hashem will ruin you on this day. Today you're ruined. In the world to come, you'll be okay. And it's stated that the sons of Zerach were the following: Zimri, Esan, Heman, Kalkol, Dara. Well, there were five. Kulam Chamisha. What does it mean, five? Kulam Chamisha L'olam Haba. And they're all five in the world to come. And who is Zimri? Ksiv Zimri, Ksiv Achan. Another pasuk, a descendant of Zerach is called Achan. So he says, Rav Shmuel Chanamar Achan Shmo. So it's the same person. One says his name was Achan. Zimri. Why was it called Zimri? Zimri. Just like Zimri served with Cosby, so too Achan sinned with the Nara Muratav. Chadamar Zimri Shmo. One says his name was Zimri. So why was it called Achan? Because he took the Jewish people's sins and he wound them around the nation like a snake. If the person doesn't know how to confess, we help him confess. And Rabbi Yehuda says, if I did the sin, let my death be an atonement. But if I didn't do the sin, he says, let my death be an atonement for all my sins except for this one. When kotatzman, in order to make himself appear innocent. But the sages don't like that. The Rabbanan don't like that. Why do we not want them to make themselves appear to be innocent? Gemara explains, we don't want to cast aspersions on the court and the witnesses. This is a very complicated story that we're going to come to in a moment. So there's a certain person, he was being brought out to be put to death. He says, if I have this sin, I don't want my death to serve. If I did do this sin, then my death will not serve as atonement for any of my sins. But if I did not do this sin, don't let my death be an atonement for all my sins. And the court and all of the Jewish people will be innocent of this sin. And the witnesses should never have atonement. When the sages heard this, Amru, what can we do? We can't bring him back. Because there was already a decree. Can we kill him? We have to kill him. And the witnesses will be responsible. Pshita, it's obviously the case. Kol kamine, is it really the person? Now the word pshita here is not really clear that it's supposed to be here because Rashi didn't have it. Also, it's not clear what's pshita here because the Gemara is asking a different question. Kol kamine, is it really? Can he really cast aspersions on the witnesses like this? The Gemara says, we're talking about a case where the witnesses themselves recanted. The witnesses recanted. The so if they recanted, why can't we reverse it? Once the witnesses testified, we don't allow them to change their testimony. And so therefore, so they can't undo it. So Gemara says, because the witnesses explained why they recanted. Nevertheless, we didn't let them recant. Because there was a similar incident with Baya, the tax collector. And Baya, the tax collector, was a person who was generally assumed to be bad. And then one time what happened was there was a mix-up during a funeral procession, and he got the good burial, and the great sage got the bad burial. And somebody saw this and didn't know why. And then he got a dream, and Baya explained that he had done a good deed one time, and the sage had done a bad deed one time. Rashi gives the whole story. But then after that, the student said to Baya, "How long are you going to be in Gehenna?" He said, "Until Shimon ben Shetach comes." Why? Because Shimon ben Shetach was allowing the witches to be there and not punishing them. So when Shimon ben Shetach heard this, he went and he came up with a plan, a complicated plan to catch the witches, and he brought them out and he killed them. And after this happened, they came up with the relatives of the witches came up with a plan to kill these to attack Shimon ben Shetach, and so they got two witnesses to testify falsely against his son, against Shimon ben Shetach's son, and then the court had no choice, but they sentenced the witnesses to death, and he was being taken out to be executed. And then on the way he was being brought out, he said, "Listen, he said this statement of the Gemara: if I did this, let my death not atone for any of my sins, but I haven't done it." And the witnesses, when they heard this powerful statement, they immediately admitted they testified falsely, but the court was unable to overturn it. And so this is a story that Rashi says here. It's also a story that's found in the Yerushalmi Chagiga. So that's today's powerful daf. So many things going on in this beautiful daf. But Chodesh Tov to everybody. Chodesh Tov.